Welcome, everybody, to Survive in Advance on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Survive in Advance is brought to you by Seat Giant. You can go to Seat Giant, click into promo code LEGEND to get a discount on any tickets you want for any sporting event anywhere. And, of course, mybookie.ag, where you can get up to a $1,000 cash bonus on your first deposit. All you have to do is go to the mybookie.ag banner on the grillingtruth.net webpage or punch in promo code TGT50. I am your co-host for Survive in Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in Indiana Basketball Hall of Famer and my other co-host, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
I have a question. If you have a giant seat, do you get a discount from Seat Giant?
Well, if you have a giant ass, you'll need a giant seat, and you are a giant ass, so you might.
So do I get a discount? If I call Seat Giant, I got the hiccups.
I think what happens is if Risley gets a ticket somewhere, I think what happens is the person that has to sit next to him gets 50% off.
No, I actually went to a Clippers game last year and at Staples Center, and those seats are made for people 5'8", not 6'8".
All right. Well, I think life in general is made for normal-sized people, not not like Jack and the Beanstalk people. All right, next up, I want to welcome from the APC agency a woman who put up with me saying her name wrong all week last week, Sarah Uhran. How you doing, Sarah?
Hey, I'm good. I put up with more than that. I mean, coming on with Steve is a challenge in itself, especially when he's got the hiccups.
Oh, Sarah, why are you picking on me? What did I do to you to make you pick on me?
Go ahead.
It's just so much fun and so easy.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
All right, I take it well.
You're like
No
dramatic.
problem.
You're dramatic when it happens.
I know. Well, and can I start off? Introduce Anthony. Get Anthony on.
Okay, I was going to, but you were interrupting it. All right, and from the FF
I interrupt
Face-Off,
everybody. Yeah.
and from the FF Face-Off, Anthony Cervino. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you?
All right. Let's start off with Russell Westbrook last
No.
night.
I have a question. I start off with this question.
God. What?
How many national champions does it take to screw in a light bulb?
Well, it
Oh,
takes,
God, here we go. Let's hear
usually
this.
takes one unless it's you. And then it takes one plus your teammates to help you. Because we all know you can't get a national championship ring without Isaiah Thomas.
It takes one because the world evolves around me.
Well, remember this, though.
The ball
Yesterday,
gets screwed in.
Yesterday, when we did the college basketball show, we had myself, Brian Ralph, and you. Now, since you're the expert, you would think Steve Risley's probably got a say in the National Coach of the Year and the All-American team, but you were the only one on the show that didn't. How does that work?
I'm not relevant.
Okay.
I admit I'm not relevant.
Let's go ahead and go from there. Let's talk about Russell Westbrook. And, yes, we're going to put a clip together with him saying that, Sarah, we will send it to you for your birthday or on Christmas. So Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook last night told a fan that he was going to F him up and his wife also. Since then, we found out that the fan is kind of an idiot when you look at his social media. What's your take on this, Steve?
I don't know. I watched this. I don't know I don't know. I don't know if the player has a right to protect his own domain, or if the fans pay all that money to get the right to bitch at a player. I really am concussed on this right now.
All right, Sarah, are you concussed, or do you have an answer?
I mean, here's the thing. I think I get, as an advocate for players, I generally speaking take the player's side because I feel like there's, I've been around and worked with guys where incidences have come up with fans and this. But at the end of the day, like, every single time that it's happened, the player has been punished and there has been no excuse, on the other end of it. And I think that you are a professional and part of sports is heckling. I mean, it happens. It happens all the time. And, fans are stupid. Like, saying that Russell Westbrook was wrong doesn't mean that anybody is saying that fan was in the right? But I think then digging into his social media to make him wrong is also completely unprofessional. So I think in my mind, you get paid to be the pro. Your job is on the court, not the fans. And you got to be able to tune that stuff out. I mean, it's no different than, when you're a kid, and I, speak from experience, when I was playing sports and, opposing teams would say something and your parents would hear it and they want to turn around and say something, but, like, that's not their job. Like, it's on the field, and you've got to be able to shut out the hecklers in order to play. I mean, that's part of being a professional. So I think it's unprofessional. I think he should be fined. I don't think it is his responsibility to relegate the fans. It is security's job. If the guy is saying something totally off color and inappropriate, by all means, should be escorted out of the building. But it is not Russell Westbrook's job to police that, nor is it anybody's job to go start digging around this guy's social media.
All right, Anthony?
I'm kind of on the fence with this whole situation, but if I'm putting myself in Russell Westbrook's situation, I'm probably going to fire back.
Okay.
I don't have an issue with it.
I have an issue with two things.
I have an issue with it too. So go ahead, Mike. Yeah, I have an issue with it too.
Number one, I've been in this situation before. I've been on a field where, fans are sitting right behind me, and they talk a lot of crap, and I always ignored it until I knew I was going to win, and then I might say some stuff. But let's see. Well, I mean, to be truthful, yeah. I mean, we're in Saginaw, Michigan. Yeah. There's 6,000 people in a 6,000 place arena, and they're, throwing stuff at us and calling us names. Once we're up 2 touchdowns with 30 seconds left, I might turn around and say some things. But overall, when I look at this, number one, it's not whether a fan has a right to say something. You have a right to scream and boo and say whatever, but my problem is this. There's little kids there. And I think if you are screaming obscene things, you should be immediately taken from the facility. And you should never be allowed to come back because there's little kids there. I've also been in a situation.
People don't care.
Yeah, I've been in this situation. Bengals-Steelers game, 2013, I think it was, Monday Night Football, where basically generally everybody in orange and black and everybody in black and gold just thinks they have the right, since they bought a ticket, to act like general asses. And I have 2 kids. At the time, I think they were 10 and 12, 11 and 13. And, yeah, they live with me, so they hear these words all the time. But it's not safe. I mean, when you have thousands of people that wired up, it's not a safe environment to take your kids to. And if it's not a safe environment to take your kids to, what's the point of having sports? Because when I was little, I remember going to Reds and Bengals games with my dad. That was special. Now, when you ask my kids about going to games with me, they'll talk about all the assholes we saw at the Bengals-Steelers game or the Bengals-Colts game. So, yeah, the guy should have been removed right away. As for Russell Westbrook, and, everybody was on him until they saw this guy's Twitter feed. My problem with that is this. Russell Westbrook didn't find out the guy's name, look him up, and find out that he was a racist. He didn't know that. So Russell Westbrook, outside of being somebody who is a great regular season player that can't get it done when it matters, is also not a very good human being. Because at some point you need to shut up, grow up, and do your job. He didn't know the guy was a racist. And even if he did, once again, there's little kids, if you look at that film, that are sitting there looking at him. All right? So the worst thing he can do in front of those little kids is say, I'm going to F you and your wife up. So Russell Westbrook should be suspended for multiple games. This guy should never be able to go to another game. If he wants to be a racist on his social media, it doesn't hurt anybody but himself because he looks like an idiot. And I would rather know somebody is a racist than to just have to guess. So in the end, I think they're both wrong. They both should be punished.
All right. So,
that's the true fact is like they're trying to make an excuse for his behavior because this guy is racist. To Mike's point, nobody knew that when Russell Westbrook retaliated. And here's the other thing: we are a society full of excuses these days, full of them. Everything's an excuse. Everybody's a victim, so everybody can scream about everything, which is just bullshit, And it's like, here's the thing: as an adult at a game, there's a learning experience. I went to Devils games. I went to Devils Rangers games as a kid. The stuff that I heard when I was a kid was out of this world. Yeah. But my parents didn't curse. My parents didn't drink. I learned from those experiences, not because my dad sheltered me from them, but because he leveraged them as an opportunity to explain what not to do. And so I would never, ever be caught dead, no matter what age I was, acting like that at a sports event. But I knew that those guys were in the wrong. I was taught they were in the wrong. So instead of looking at it and Russell Westbrook leaving the court and saying, there was a guy antagonizing me, kids, you could learn from this, which, no player is going to really do. But at the end, he didn't accost him or use those words because the guy was a racist. He did them because he felt entitled to do that. He felt it is his job, and because he is the star on the court, he had the right to say that.
Sarah, they both felt entitled. The fan felt entitled because he bought a ticket. Russell Westbrook.
Correct.
Go ahead, Steve.
Correct.
No, Mike. I'm sorry, Mike. Keep going because you're right. I'm following you, Mike. Keep going because you're going to say the same thing I'm going to say. So just say it. Yeah.
So
I'm with you.
In the end, they're both wrong. And this is the thing, Sarah. When you were a kid, which was probably 4 or 5 years ago, things worked. I'm trying to be that. Well, yeah. But 15 years ago, when you're going to games, things are different than now. And it got to the point where I don't get season tickets to Bengals games anymore because I see where this is going. Because we sat there that day and watched probably 8 fights break out. And then the Bengals played the Steelers in the playoffs 2 years later. And I'm like, I'm not going to do this because you don't know. I mean, we've seen fans killed outside stadiums. We've seen fist fights between fans in stadiums. And anymore, it's just not an environment that you want to take your kids to. And when you've got the players acting the same way, I think what you have is it shows you how far society has fallen over the last 30 years, where people are generally just assholes.
So can I interject now, Mike? Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right because we owned 4 season tickets with 2 other guys. Three guys bought 4 season tickets to the Pacers. We sat 2 rows back in the end zone underneath the basket. And I took my 8-year-old son, 9-year-old son, and the F-bomb was dropped every freaking minute in a game. And I'm thinking, okay, is this the environment I want my son to be involved in and have him hear this word used so commonly with disregard? And we finally just said, that's it. We're not going to any more games. It's, we stopped going. We started watching it on TV where we could block it out. So I think your observation there is right, Mike. Spot on. I'm with you 100%. Now, Anthony, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What the hell is a warning card? Because they issued 5 warning cards.
Who did?
They gave 5 warning cards to fans. That's what they gave. What is that? What is a warning card?
I don't know, but I could assume that maybe if a fan gets a warning card, it has to do with if they're a season ticket holder. The next one you have to relinquish your tickets. That's my assumption. But how do you keep track of that unless it's all computerized?
I'm sure it probably is. But and the thing you have is this is going to end up coming to something like you have in soccer overseas, where we've seen multiple people killed in very violent acts during soccer games in stadiums.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah. No, I agree, Mike. Yeah.
Whoa! Don't mention soccer.
Why?
Steve might freak out.
Well,
Steve might freak out.
Why would Steve freak out?
Me, soccer? I love soccer. Are you kidding me? Did you watch?
Tell him, let's talk about soccer. He's like, no.
No.
Me
I
and
love
Mike don't
soccer.
like soccer.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing with soccer. So let's talk
Sarah.
Yeah.
Did you watch James Corden last night with
No.
who's the guy? Who's the big soccer? Beckham.
No, I did not.
Go pull it up and watch it. I
Corden?
was at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's James Corden. Yeah.
Who's that?
I watched. You got it. James Corden he hosts the late night show, the Late Late Show.
I don't watch that stuff.
But he spoofed and he punked Beckham so bad, and you got to go watch it, Sarah. I never laughed my ass off so hard in my life at what he did to Beckham. You got to watch it.
I'll go check it out.
It's hilarious.
And to go to soccer, I think one of the things that they do have more fights probably than most, and one of the things to go back to this is that, and again, the hardest part I have with all of these situations and what's going on is the idea of responsibility and personal responsibility, which I think has gone by the wayside at this point in our society, which is sad, which is a bigger issue than just sports. But Russell Westbrook has his own social responsibility. That fan has his own responsibility. And then there's like security, right, that has their responsibility. And unfortunately, you had two adult individuals unable to have their own responsibility. And so now you have to interject with, well, what should security have done? Well, never should have gotten to that point. But in reality, now we have to rely on the fact that security needs to be able to keep the fans further away from these players and be able to react at any given moment by escorting these people out, which, again, is sad because you should have the personal responsibility when you go to a sports event to not cause an incident. No matter how much you drink or how emotional you are.
Mike?
What?
I know you and I are going to get on this together here. We're going to be on opposite pages, I'm sure. Should they just start not selling tickets and just put sports on TV, Sarah, and just say, you know what, we can't have fans here anymore because fans are going to they pay, now it costs minimum. I mean, to go to a Lakers game, you're paying $500 to $700 just to walk in the damn
That's why
Staples
people
Center.
Feel entitled to act like assholes.
Exactly. That's my point.
Correct.
So you're paying that kind of money, and so you don't have a right to voice your opinion, Sarah. And so we just stopped doing sports for fans and just doing it for television.
But here's the thing. Not only as a fan do you not have the right at paying $500 a ticket, but you also as an athlete, whether you disagree, I mean, again, as an advocate for athletes, and I will stand by my guys like through thick and thin, but I will not through this stuff. Just because you make millions of dollars does not give you the right to be above anybody else, right? And, like, that's kind of the problem. Like, you had two people that both, to Mike's point, to correct me because he is correct, they both are entitled, and they were having this words at one another, not because one is a racist, but because they both felt entitled to their ability to voice whatever the hell they wanted to say in that moment. They felt it was their right. And it's not either of their rights. Neither of them, yes, it was just, it's unprofessional on every level. And no, sports is meant to be consumed live in real time, but it's not meant to be like this. It's just not.
Well, the problem is this. We live in an era where it's alcohol too, but I mean, number one, I don't think there should be alcohol sold at games. They won't let me take a gun.
Agreed entirely, yeah.
Me too.
Agreed entirely, yeah.
I mean, because the NFL, they'll do all these drunk driving commercials and then sell like $2 million commercials to Miller and Budweiser. So that's all a joke. But the biggest problem is we live in an era, and it's been like this probably since the early 70s and just progressively gotten worse, where people are no longer expected to take responsibility for their actions. And when that happens, this is what you get. But
Touche.
all right,
Yes,
Touche,
exactly.
Mike. Touche.
let's go ahead and
And
let's,
here's the biggest thing. I say this to people all the time, and this is relatable to everyday life in general, right? Is take responsibility for your actions. Because here's the thing. Russell Westbrook had an opportunity that even if this guy sparked him and he went off, which, fine, it happens. It does happen. Even if that happened, if you come off the court and you immediately take responsibility for your actions, it changes the entire conversation.
yeah,
It
if he
changes
would have
the
just went
dynamic.
on and said, he said this, I got pissed and I said something I shouldn't have, I apologize, I'll take whatever
Right.
actions come from it.
End
Nobody
of
does
story. End
Yeah.
of story.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, so
he
here,
would have come out a hero.
here's the things I learned. At 3 o'clock in the morning, ESPN has an L.A. show. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they actually have an L.A. show because I was watching it at 3 in the morning, and they were talking about it then. So let's just go around the horn. Everybody, who was more wrong here, Westbrook or the fan? I'm
There's
going to say
no more
Westbrook.
wrong. They're both wrong. Equal.
Okay, I'm going to say Westbrook could have handled it. He could have walked away from it and said, you know what, I have security. I'm a player.
Yeah.
I'm protected. I'm
And
just
the
going to
fan
walk
could
away
have
from
just said, I'm a fan. Maybe I should just shut
Fan.
the hell up.
it. Exactly. But I'm going to say Westbrook had the bigger opportunity to walk away from it.
Correct.
Sarah?
That's what I would agree with that. I would agree
But
with
why
what you
does
said.
the player always get blamed?
It's not about blame. It's about the fact that you have an opportunity to be a leader, to be the bigger person. And I'm not saying that's easy. It is not easy. But you are the professional. You are the role model. You have taken on that responsibility. And to every point that Mike and Steve made about kids being at these games, Russell Westbrook could have been such a pro and made such a statement of, you know, we have this fan heckling me. He could have grabbed security and said, you got to get rid of this guy.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
you got to get him out of
And
here.
I've seen
And
players do
there's
that
one of the-
before, too.
Yeah.
10 years ago, 5 years ago, I think it's a lot easier for players to control themselves. And I think a lot of this goes to where we are with social media, because now players aren't only – they're in the spotlight on Twitter, Facebook, social media, the news. That there is so many more outlets magnifying and hounding and heckling these players, where 10 years ago you might have had a newspaper and ESPN. Now you have so much coverage, and no matter where they look, they're getting heat for something. Every little thing they do is magnified.
But
They're
here's
getting
the thing.
paid out the ass.
Part
They're
of-
getting this signing
part of-
$350 million
Exactly.
contracts for 10 years. Are you
Exactly.
kidding
They are
me?
getting-
Own up to your
they are
responsibility.
getting paid.
How about
Yeah.
They are
this?
getting paid
Guys.
to be professional, and they are getting paid to be role models. Whether
How
they
about
like
this?
it or
Right.
not,
How about
that
this?
is part of their contract.
Guys, let's look at it like this. If you want to place blame, let's just go with a normal everyday job. If you work at the front desk at Lowe's and I go to take something back and you piss me off and I scream and get pissed at you and you yell back at me, you get fired. I don't. I mean,
Right.
they're the ones that are working. The customer
Fair.
is always right, correct? We've all heard that if we had jobs when we were younger.
Right.
So, in the end, a lot of people scream a lot of things. Every player gets screamed at during an NBA game incessantly. Russell Westbrook is the one that decided to scream back. And in
He
the
shouldn't
end,
have.
blame is placed to me on both. Both are completely wrong. Neither is more wrong than the other, Anthony, to me. But I know this, if where you work, if somebody comes in and gives you a hard time and you go off on them, you're probably going to get fired.
And Mike, great point. Let me just, and we'll move on to free agency after this. But think of this: who is the most abused person in the world? And you'll not know the answer to this because I'm going to tell you. It's the person that takes the ticket at the airport when you're late trying to get on the plane, and the plane is pulling out. It's the stewardess.
That is, there's no
whoever's
way that's
there.
the most
Yes.
abused person in the
No,
world.
no. That's the person who gets
Cops.
bitched at.
Cops.
That's the person who gets bitched. I have bitched at that person more times than I can
No.
ever remember when I was
You know who
flying.
the most
Bad.
bitch person at is in my world? It's the guy that works for Xfinity when my satellite or my cable goes
that's
out.
Well, that's every day.
Yeah, and
Oh,
then
I thought it was me. I
and
thought it
then
was
they
me.
have a foreigner answer the phone from India that can't understand what
Yeah,
I'm
exactly,
saying.
yeah.
That is the most bitched at person in the world. I'll leave it at that. But let's go ahead.
There you go.
And
Let's go ahead and move on.
I take ownership for my actions because
So wait,
I really
nobody.
do think they're idiots.
I say Westbrook carries the blame here. Everybody else make a claim.
I already did. Both of them.
You say both.
If you
Sarah?
had to narrow it down to one person, I would say Westbrook.
Okay, Anthony.
Both. If it's anything, it's both.
Yeah, if that dude never says anything, Westbrook never says anything. So, as I
Right.
would say when I was 7, he started it. All right, guys, let's go to NFL free agency. And we're going to start off. I'm going to kind of let Anthony run this a little bit because I've been paying too much attention to basketball because of the other shows we've got. But let's start off with Antonio Brown. Good deal for the Raiders, good deal for the Steelers. Where do we stand on that, Anthony?
I think it is a great deal for the Raiders because of their compensation given. For the Steelers, I think Antonio Brown got what he wanted. He forced Pittsburgh's hand, and they could have gotten more if they had more time, but because they had to pay Antonio Brown this roster bonus or whatever he had coming to him, they had to pull the trigger.
All right, Sarah.
I think Antonio Brown's just super stoked he's not going to Buffalo. So, 'cause wasn't that the rumor at first?
Well, the rumor was that there was a trade deal done, and he nixed it.
Yeah. Well, I thought, it was funny. It's like that being out here in Denver, right? We hear about the second team you hear the most about is the Raiders. And it's like, it's that ebbs and flows where it's like, people are stoked for him because it's Derek Carr. And then, every single meme and everything else I've seen out here has been, Derek Carr to I was about to say Russell Westbrook. Derek Carr to Antonio Brown, Chiefs Raiders, and the Chiefs win 47-7, right? So it's like, I think it's, in my opinion, it's a great opportunity, but the Raiders have seemed so lackluster that I just don't know. I mean, I think the best thing coming for him is that they're moving to Vegas and what that might bring, but I don't know. I mean, I wonder if Antonio Brown's similar to, as a Giants fan, an Odell Beckham, where it's just, everywhere he goes, he kind of creates something, a little bit of internal turmoil. I'm not sure.
That would be, I think the comp for that is more or less Terrell Owens. Because
Maybe, yeah.
it was going.
It was Terrell Owens, not
yeah,
Terrell.
well,
Yeah.
Terrell.
no matter where T.O. went, he had issues. And, even with Odell
You're
Beckham.
so bad.
I try to be.
Go
I
ahead.
work hard at it.
Sorry.
Trust me, you know how hard it is to be bad. You have to work hard to be bad. It's not easy to do. It's not easy being
You couldn't
me.
let
Go
it
ahead,
go.
Anthony.
It was just a name pronunciation. I mean, Mike gets mine wrong every single
Do
time.
you ever watch Jeopardy?
Okay,
Do
so
you see
your
how many
name is
Jeopardy
not
questions?
Uran?
You
Oh, you
ran,
got it
yeah.
right today.
Mike blew your name for a
you know
whole
what?
week and a
This
half.
is what I don't like.
Yeah.
I don't like somebody who's a guest coming on the show claiming that I constantly say their name wrong when I have not said it wrong all day today. I didn't say it wrong the first time you were on. I said it wrong last week. All right.
Oh.
I think this. I think neither team wins because I think Antonio Brown is probably just a pain in the ass. I think Antonio Brown wins, though. And the interesting thing here is with all the draft picks the Raiders have, if they draft well, it could turn out to be good because if AB's happy, everybody else will be happy. But I think in the end, they're always the Chiefs are still better. And we'll get to the Broncos in a little bit, who have improved their offensive line. I think the Broncos still don't have a quarterback, which is going to kill them. But the Chargers have upgraded their team over the last couple days also. So I think the Chargers and Chiefs are still better teams than the Raiders either way. no matter what happens.
Okay, Mike.
I think they're better coached.
Mike,
the Raiders
Mike,
and
Mike, let me ask you a question. Antonio Brown,
Got him.
arguably one of the best receivers in the game right now, correct?
Yeah.
He goes to the Raiders, who have a shit quarterback.
They don't have a shit quarterback. Derek Carr is a very good quarterback. When he had a team around him, the year he got hurt, they were looking at either winning the West or they'd have been the first wild card. They'd have won at least one playoff game with him. You cannot blame Derek Carr because ownership there took what was a top 3 offensive line 3 years ago, destroyed it, and destroyed a lot of other stuff also. And now the question is this. Lucas Weiss, a listener from Canada, has just said, what if Le'Veon Bell goes to Oakland? What do you think about that, Anthony? Is that possible?
it's possible, but with all the moves the Raiders have already made, I don't know if they are going to invest that money it would take, because the Raiders, they've been busy. They have signed LaMarcus Joyner, the high-price safety from the Rams. They traded Kalichi Osemele to the Jets to get a draft pick back, but then gave Trent Brown, the star left tackle from the Patriots, a monster 4-year, $66 million deal. They re-signed Jonathan Hankins, the nose tackle. They tendered Jalen Richard. So they've been busy, and they don't even have a running back really yet, because Doug Martin and Marshawn Lynch are both free agents. So they have a lot of money already spent, but I wouldn't rule out the Raiders as a suitor for Bell. I just think they might go in another direction, maybe drafting somebody like a David Montgomery.
So Anthony, question: who's got the cap money? I mean, who?
Your Colts. Colts are the number.
I know the Colts
one
have the cap
team.
money, and are they being quiet? I'm hearing
you know
nothing.
what? The one signing that they made, I don't like. Devin Funchess, they gave him a 1-year show-me deal worth, I think, $13 million max. And that's who they're going to give another weapon to Andrew Luck opposite T.Y. Hilton. You should have just brought back Dante Moncrief at that point, because you could have got Dante Moncrief for probably 1 year, $10 million. And he already knows the system.
So should Antonio gone to the Colts?
Why? Just because they have more money doesn't mean that they were going to offer the same amount. Plus, it had to be a trade.
Well, the Raiders paid him a $20 or $30 million raise before he even played it down.
Yeah.
That's the most mind-blowing part of it on the Raiders' end.
There you go,
Because you don't know
there you go, sport
if
what?
he can get along with Derek Carr.
Yeah, I don't think Derek Carr is the quarterback for Antonio Brown. I think Antonio Brown's a better receiver than Derek Carr's a quarterback, Mike.
Why?
Go ahead.
Well, that's fucking
Kill
stupid
me.
to say.
All right, okay.
I mean, Derek Carr, the 1 year where he was healthy and everything was going well and he had a team around him. I mean, you're going to blame a quarterback because he can't win, because he has no offensive line, no defense, no head coach, no running game really, except for a couple old guys. I mean, come on. You're going to blame a quarterback for that? What's he supposed to do?
Player.
Is he supposed to
quarterback's the franchise player. You build your team around your quarterback.
Yeah.
So, they got to be accountable. Yeah, they have to be accountable.
But they didn't build a team around him. They
accountability.
took the team around him and destroyed it, Steve.
You're yelling at me,
Destroyed it.
Mike.
Yes, I did, because you're stupid sometimes.
I am stupid all the time. I get that.
Okay. Well, that's why I yelled at you.
All right. Nick Foles, is he signed with the Jaguars, Anthony? Or Sarah? Anybody? Is he signing?
He signed. That's a monster deal.
Yeah, he signed.
He signed.
Yeah,
it's a done deal.
I mean, this
$50 million guaranteed.
Jesus Christ.
This is an interesting.
Come on.
It's an interesting one, mostly because you have, he's not played the full seasons the last couple of seasons, right? So it's I love Nick Foles. Like, I mean, he's one of those quarterbacks that I think a lot of teams would have loved to have seen get there. But it becomes it's kind of like the Case Keenum situation. Is he a starting quarterback, or is he better when he's coming in to be the savior of the team? Like, that's always the question with some of these backup guys.
That's the take.
It's not. It's not the same as Case Keenum. I watched Nick Foles.
I mean,
become the MVP
Sarah,
of the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl and is a way better quarterback, but I'm saying comparably in the fact that there are some guys that are just better off the bench than they are as the starters. And that's not to say they don't start a lot of games. It's just that it's kind of where their head's at when they come in to gain that starting spot.
Nick Foles in his career, and this is even including years where he was a backup coming off the bench, his only losing season was in his rookie year in 2012 was 1-5. The issue is, despite all of his success, he has never played a full 16-game season. So you don't know if he can either last or if he can even get a team into position to get into the playoffs.
When has he been hurt?
Great question, Mike. Great question.
Hurt?
Yeah. When has he been hurt?
I think
he's durable. He's very durable.
Yeah, I don't think he has been hurt.
Yeah, he's durable.
I also think he's got leadership qualities that you're not going to get with some of these other guys.
All right.
Like
Let's do this. If we look at this, 2013, he started 13 games. All right, he came in the third game after somebody got hurt. He threw 27 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions. The next year, he started 8 games. I think he did get hurt that year. 13 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He goes to St. Louis. Jeff Fisher was his coach. You can't blame that on him. He goes to Kansas City. He only plays in 3 games. And then
that's funny.
If you look at the next, 2 years, he goes and he wins a Super Bowl. And in that Super Bowl year,
Jeff Hostetler won a Super Bowl off an injury too, and got paid.
Jeff
Hostetler, didn't do anything in Oakland.
You're right. Jeff Hostetler didn't win anything in Oakland. He got him to the playoffs a couple times, or his first couple years in a row.
Did he?
I mean, he had. Was he the quarterback in 1990 to get him to the championship game?
No. Jeff Hostetler was still he won the Super Bowl in like 91 or 92 when Phil Simms got hurt in the Giants.
He won the Super Bowl in 1990. If you look at Jeff Hostetler's career, though, I mean, it wasn't like he was a bum. He wasn't a great quarterback, but to say that he was a failure in Oakland, he had Oakland into playoffs in 93, where they went 10-5. 94, he was 9-7, and in 95, he was 7-4 and got hurt. 96, he was 7-6. And I mean, when you look at it as a starting quarterback,
they
Jeff
gave Nick Foles 4 years, $88 million, $50 million guaranteed. He better be getting deeper than Blake Bortles. And Blake Bortles got them to an AFC championship game.
No, he didn't. Blake Bortles did not get them to an AFC championship game. Their defense did. Their defense, they beat Buffalo in the wild card game 10-3.
Wild card game, right? Yeah.
I mean, come on, it's not because Blake Bortles played well.
They brought Nick Foles in to get them over the hump, to do what Blake Bortles couldn't do.
But this is the problem. Nobody in Jacksonville is going to be a successful quarterback that wins the Super Bowl until they get a head coach.
Correct. There are more issues.
Marone is not the guy. There's issues there.
Coming.
Yeah, and this team 2 years ago, if you remember, they lost some stuff out of free agency. And as Lucas says, Nick Foles is 4-2 in the postseason. I think Case Keenum should be the starting quarterback in Denver because I think Case Keenum's a good quarterback. I think he had no offensive line. He had a running game. His wide receivers weren't great. The defense was dropping off, and the coaching was bad. And we're going to blame Case Keenum when we forget the year before he played basically a whole season in Minnesota and ended up in the NFC Championship game.
Well, it goes back to, and I'm not comparing apples to apples, but it goes back to the Derek Carr comments, right? Like, you cannot hold a quarterback accountable for absolutely everything. You just can't. And when they brought Case in here, people were there was definitely questioned the decision and all this kind of stuff. But in the end, I mean, Vance Joseph was a terrible coach. And you had, you can't rely entirely on a Case Keenum to get things done. You get rid of Demaryius Thomas. We do have some good, decent receivers, but you can't blame him for them not making the playoffs and having it all be his fault. I mean, there's way more that goes into it. And to Mike's point, like we had, Case had no offensive line protecting him. And that was, again, like you go look at the Giants. I mean, yeah, maybe Eli's getting older, but here's the thing. He has nobody protecting him. That dude gets hit all the time. You get hit all the time, you're not going to complete passes.
Steve?
Okay. Nobody's talking. All right.
No, because you disagreed with us.
Waiting for you.
She made a statement.
I disagree entirely. I think
Really?
if you invest that kind of money into a quarterback, then you expect them to carry your team.
You know what's a bitch? This is the thing. People that don't know about what it takes to build a football team have a tendency to blame everything on the quarterback. And this is the thing. If you remember, Peyton Manning was not very good the year they won the Super Bowl, but their defense was great, and they won because of that. They didn't win the Super Bowl because of Peyton Manning was their quarterback. They won it because their defense was awesome, and they got to play against Cam Newton in the Super Bowl. So when you look at this, Case Keenum last year with a bad offensive line threw for 4,000 yards, 18 touchdowns, 15 picks. If you look at his career, the year before that, with players around him, he was good enough to win. What people don't understand is, instead of going out and throwing money at a Joe Flacco, why not spend that money on signing the best free agent offensive lineman you can find? And then giving Case Keenum what to work with. And Vance Joseph, I think in Vance Joseph's defense, you can call him a bad head coach all you want, but he didn't have a fair chance. He was brought into a team with a defense that was aging and an offense that was incapable of doing anything. I mean, this is a bigger problem with John Elway.
And a general manager that runs the team.
Yeah.
Okay, so
John Elway's the
question
biggest
right
problem.
There, Mike. Right there, Mike. Colts, they have Andrew Luck. They've got one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I don't know if he is the best. But he is one of the best. They spent their money on an offensive line, and their GM did that and built that. And great point, Sarah. Is that where the money should be spent? Is building around your quarterback and saying, I can take an average quarterback, but I've got to have a great offensive line.
Well, that's obviously true.
So I'm a genius.
You're a genius. You could build.
You flipped your argument to what me and Sarah were saying. So yeah, you're a genius.
He's second genius to both of us.
Yeah. Well, he's third genius. You're second.
All
right. Yeah. No, wait. We got to answer it too.
What happened? So Mike.
What?
What happens to Blake
Sarah,
Bortles?
before you say anything, I've got 6 rings I can send pictures of. Go ahead, Steve.
What happens to Blake Bortles now? What happens to Blake? Guys, what happens to guys and girls? I'm sorry, and we have Sarah on. What happens to Blake Bortles now?
You're sorry we have Sarah on? That's awful mean.
No, I did not want to be non. Oh, Jesus Christ!
Here we go.
I hate social media.
Anthony. Does Blake Bortles even get signed by anybody, or has he been?
They are going to release him and eat a lot of dead money. Bortles, I think they're going to eat like $20 million this year. In Blake Bortles, I have to double check if it can be deferred or not into 2 seasons, but I'm pretty sure they picked up his option last year or extended him, and his 2019 due salary is about $20 million.
Wow.
Blake Bortles is a former top 5 pick. I do think he will get a job as a backup somewhere. Maybe the Dolphins take a shot at him.
Or maybe, who needs a quarterback? Is that team in Memphis in the AAF. I think that's where he would fit better because he's not an NFL quarterback, I don't think, Anthony. Well, at least not a guy you're going to win with, and he's going to want so much money that you can't pay it to him unless he gets desperate. Go ahead.
Hey, so let me ask you a question, Mike. Mike, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Just for throwing it out there, Blake Bortles or Jacoby Bledsoe, who would you have as your backup?
I don't know who Jacoby Bledsoe is, but if you're trying to say Jacoby Brissett, I would rather have Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah. All right, whatever. Yeah.
And this is the thing. If I'm the Miami Dolphins, I would make a run at Brissett instead of what it looks like they're going to do, Anthony, and go with Tyrod Taylor.
Well, whatever's going on in Miami, I guess they could be tanking for next year. That's all the rumors that I'm seeing.
Tanking for Tua?
Possibly. Teddy Bridgewater kind of snubbed him and re-signed with the Saints, so that kind of tells you the state of the Dolphins right now.
Well, it also tells
Teddy
you...
Bridgewater could have probably started in Miami.
Yeah, but the thing is this. If you're Teddy Bridgewater, you could hang out at New Orleans, maybe win a Super Bowl ring, and Drew Brees is going to retire within the next couple of years, and then you're the starting quarterback.
So you're saying Bortles or over Tyrod Taylor, or what was the question?
Oh, no, I don't even remember the question,
Brissett.
Steve.
It was Brissett or Tyrod.
Yeah, Brissett is a lot better than Tyrod.
I like Brissett a lot.
Yeah.
And Brissett makes a lot of sense because of the Patriots connection, because Brissett was a Patriots backup back when they had Jimmy Garoppolo behind Brady, and obviously Brian Flores was a coach there. So that actually makes a lot of sense, just a matter of do the Colts want to, kind of move on from Jacoby Brissett, because Andrew Luck, one hit to the shoulder, we don't know what the hell happened.
Yeah, that's the problem. So, Steve, would you want him to trade Brissett? Or would you want him to keep him?
Oh, I want him to keep him. If you can afford him, and I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, he's not a free agent, I don't think. Now, the team that looks interesting to me, Anthony, is the New York Jets. They signed Anthony Barr, and now they signed C.J. Mosley.
Yeah, the Jets have been busy bringing those two defenders in, which I love. They haven't had a pass rush, or at least a really good pass rush, seems like, in the past 5-10 years. So that's what Barr and Mosley is going to bring. They also made a couple of low-end signings on offense, especially with Jamison Crowder kind of tightening up that receiving core. There's a lot of speed and versatility between Robbie Anderson, Jamison Crowder, and Quincy Enunwa. Another low-end depth signing was Jay Bellamy in the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I think
they also traded for Kalichi Semele from the Raiders to bolster that interior offensive line.
I feel like anybody who's a Jets fan listening to this just may have passed out with the amount of optimism that people have for them.
Well, the great thing for them is they're stuck in a division with the Patriots, but also in that division are the Bills and the Dolphins. So
that's true.
If they get it together, that's 4 free wins every year, and they can win the division. They just got to wait for Bill Belichick to retire.
Yeah, Jets fans just have it's just brutal being a Jets fan, huh?
Not really. I'm a Bengals fan. Jets fans have it easy. All right.
All right. So is Trey Flowers the best get this year?
In terms of what?
Of just adding a player to your team that could change the persona of your defense.
I mean, it's him or Mosley for me. I mean, C.J. Mosley's no slouch.
Yeah, C.J. Mosley's the dude, I think.
But I like the fact that Flowers, where he landed with the Lions with his former coach, I like that a lot. It wouldn't surprise me if either the Dolphins, but I think Matt Patricia could possibly bring in another Patriot, whether it's Jamie Collins, who was just released, or even Eric Rowe in the secondary. I love what the Packers are doing. Speaking of the NFC West, they revamped their pass rush, bringing in Preston Smith and Za'Darius Smith, brought in a safety from the Bears, Adrian Amos. I can't wait to see what the Packers are going to do on defense. Really good defensive movement this year in free agency so far.
Steve, anything else?
All right, so, yeah, Mike, Trey Flowers and Trent Brown, Patriots lose 2 players.
Wait, a little bit of breaking news. Mike Garafolo, NFL Network, just tweeted out, linebacker Anthony Barr has decided to remain with the Vikings and will not join the Jets.
Yep. Well, there's what it's like to be a Jets fan. You get excited, and then it goes away.
That is the epitome of a Jets fan.
C.J. Mosley just retired.
None of these deals or trades are official until 4 p.m. tomorrow at the start of the new league year.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Can we go back to something? This is an ongoing question, debate, I guess, that people keep having. Do you think that Matt Patricia can build in Detroit Patriots 2.0, or is he fighting an uphill battle that he can't win?
He can't win because he's Matt Patricia, and he used to be an assistant for Bill Belichick, and that usually doesn't work out too good for people.
But he seems to be. I mean, I feel like there's a system there. I mean, to me, as a it's not to go to my total bias again, but as a Yankee person, it's like trying to build the Yankee organization within another organization. I don't know that it actually works, but it seems to be his mission is to. It's not about creating his own club or his own organization. It's about creating Patriots 2.0.
Well, and I think what we've seen from everybody that's left Belichick, that's what they all attempt to do. And the only one that's really pulled it off that was an assistant for Belichick is Nick Saban in college at Alabama. I mean,
the only person who pulled it off really was Bill Belichick, taking Bill Parcells and taking everything he learned from there and making it his own, right?
No. I think that Belichick had more to do with Parcells winning than Parcells did with Belichick.
That could be fair.
Because also when you look at it, the years that he didn't have Belichick, Parcells wasn't near the genius he was before. And I think people miss the fact that the New York Giants defense, if you listen to Parcells talk, will tell you it was all Belichick. They go to New England. Belichick's with him. They go to the Super Bowl. And when you look at this team and what he did in Cleveland, I think people underestimate his time in Cleveland because they see a losing record, but they don't realize that when he got there, that was a team that 1986, 87, 88, 89, playoff teams, championship games 3 to 4 years. They got old. Team went to crap in 1990. Bud Carson gets fired. Belichick takes over a team in 91 that was 3-13. And, 2 years later, or 2 seasons later, he's in the 1994 playoffs. He's beating Bill Parcells in that playoff game. And the hell was that? Did anybody hear that?
It's not me.
Is that? All right.
My dog's just sleeping.
He goes in 94, wins a playoff game. 95, they're one of the favorites to go to the Super Bowl. They're sitting, I think it's 6-4. They're in first place in the AFC North, or AFC Central at that time. And all of a sudden, the team gets moved. The team falls apart. Not his fault. They go to crap. Bill Belichick comes in, wins the Super Bowl a few years later with those players. But I think people underestimate what Belichick does. And if you look at Vince Lombardi, when Lombardi left Green Bay, Phil Bingston, who was the guy that was there, tried to do it just like Lombardi. And the thing is this, there's only one Lombardi, there's only one Landry, there's only one Belichick. And if you can't create your own system, it's never going to work because you're trying to put a round, something round in a square peg.
Anthony.
Yes.
Trent Brown to the Raiders, left tackle. How important is that to Tom Brady?
Huh? Oh, okay.
It's going to be, you would think it's going to be a big loss, but, for a couple of years now, Brady has been playing musical chairs with his left tackle because Nate Solder got hurt, who was his longtime left tackle, and then you saw Cam Fleming start a lot of the year a couple years ago, and then Nate Solder signed with the Giants, and Cam Fleming signed with Dallas, and then Trent Brown came on and excelled at left tackle, and now he's gone. The Patriots have a ton of picks early in the draft, plus they have a couple of offensive linemen that they drafted early last year that hasn't even taken a snap yet because they got injured in the preseason. I think they'll be fine.
Okay. Mike, any comments?
They're the Patriots. They'll just get somebody else and turn them into a
They'll still get smell some win, right?
I mean, when you look at it, it's what Belichick does, and that's why this is so hard to do because this is the thing. When you look at it, the year Denver won the Super Bowl, they beat New England in the playoffs. New England's offensive line that year was terrible. Because you had Dante Scarinecci decided to retire the year before that. The offensive line fell apart. The next year, Belichick gives him twice the money any other offensive line coach is getting, brings him back, and he's been to 3 straight Super Bowls since. And with offensive linemen, I think the most important position coach on any football team is the offensive line coach, because there's a lot of teams that don't have good ones. And Dante Scaranici, or however the hell you say his name, I mean, he's an old dude that's been around. He's kind of like the Howard Mudd, Jim McNally types. So it doesn't matter. He will coach them up, and they will be fine.
All right, Randy Gregory, Anthony, Cowboys, is he done?
Probably. He's definitely going to be done this season. I don't see him coming back within the year. And there's always that chance he resurfaces, because you see the guys like, even Josh Gordon, the Patriots tendered him today. So if he ever comes back, he'd be property of the Patriots, just like Gregory would be property of the Cowboys. But, with these players, you just kind of have to hope they get it right for their life, never mind their football career.
All right, Jerry Jones wants him back, so that's the same.
Yeah, and I coached this kid in high school basketball. I know this kid, and we've had this discussion before, so I'm repeating myself. He's a good kid. I just don't get where his head's at. I mean, but it is what it is, I guess, because that's too bad. Because there's a guy who had tremendous amounts of talent, was a great player, but just couldn't get his shit together.
Well, unfortunately, I'd rather have a smart kid. And I mean, if
there
you're
you go.
giving that up because you want to smoke weed,
yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And really, this is the thing. When it comes down to it, is this. Tyreek Hill should not be in the NFL for things he did, which were much worse than Randy Gregory. But Tyreek Hill's really valuable. When you're really valuable, people will overlook things. I don't think, Anthony, is it fair to say Randy Gregory hasn't played well enough to make himself that valuable?
He was valuable, and I think it showed last year when Gregory finally got on the field to make an impact.
I'm talking about valuable enough to put up with the shit that he brings.
Great point.
He's valuable. He's a good player. But after a while, I mean, Sarah, when somebody does crap like this, or Josh Gordon, no matter what it is they're doing, if they won't stop, at some point you just got to ask if the guy's really worth the trouble.
Yeah, but that goes back to kind of what we were talking about before, right? I mean, it goes back to the initial conversation. Unfortunately, these teams do put up with certain things depending on who the player is. I mean, that's just kind of the reality. It's, certain guys can get away with certain things, and it's unfortunate because truly in my opinion, part of being in the NFL and any pro sport is the learning experience that comes with it too. Teach these guys, and I'm not saying that they don't all get, second, third chances, but, it shouldn't matter who they are. It should matter on what we're doing about it, and are we helping them, or are we educating them on why it was wrong, or whatever the situation may be. I just think that it's sad when you have to say things like, this guy provides more value, so it means what he did was less wrong because he provides more value.
Hey, but that's what it is in any workplace too, though.
Yeah.
Agreed. It happens everywhere. It's not just in sports.
Here's my point. Here's my question, Sarah. Is the NFL a learning experience, or is it a job?
It's a job.
It's a job, but sadly,
you just called it a learning experience. You just called it a learning experience. What I mean.
No. But here's the thing: like when you and I are thrust into jobs at 22 after college, right? Like we have the ability to make mistakes without it being front page news, right? That's the challenge that we have. Is we are, and technically they're not even 21, 22 because they haven't really matured those 4 years in college because they've been gods put on a pedestal. So what is it that we're doing to try and help them and help them make better decisions when they get there? Because at 20 and even 19, 20, 21, whatever they do is going to be front page news. I mean, just the reality of it. And that's hard. And I'm not saying that that's an excuse. It's not. It's just that there needs to be the same way that, if a guy at Lowe's screams at a customer, he might he's probably going to get lectured the first time. He's probably not going to get fired. But he is probably going to get fired the second time if it happens, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Probably according to what you scream.
Well, that's true. I might have gotten fired on the first time for yelling at a customer. But it probably definitely came out wrong.
Anthony, can I ask one more question, Mike? Then I know you want to move on to something else.
I'm sure. As you want. Go ahead.
I'm having fun. I'm enjoying this.
Well, as long as you're having fun, that's all important to all of us. So go ahead.
It is. It is for me.
I know.
I'm 60.
Sarah told me
tomorrow.
this. She said, I'm going to come on the show, but the most important thing to me is that Steve has a good time.
There you go. And thank you.
I did say that.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Even Anthony said
Thank you very much.
I talked to Anthony this morning. He said, hey, let's make sure Steve has a good day.
Anthony, biggest free agents out there available. Where are they going? Can we run it down?
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's go there now.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. Start it off.
Okay, well, let me pull it up.
Let's go to the computer.
Oh, Jesus
Steve
Christ.
asked the question.
Steve knows this off
Steve
knows this off the top of his head. He doesn't need the computer.
Go ahead, Steve.
I'm watching the Kardashians right now. I don't have any idea who the biggest free agents are. You guys lead this right now.
That's creepy.
They don't.
Kylie Jenner is now the youngest person ever to make $1 billion.
Hey, just think, if O.J. Simpson wouldn't have killed his wife, she'd have never been a billionaire.
What?
Okay, here we go.
That's where the Jenners got to start.
I got to figure that one out, Mike.
Just look at who the lawyer was. The lawyer was married
I'm writing it down. I'm writing that one down.
Between that and if Kim wouldn't have let somebody, do her on film and
I'm writing that question down right now.
It's true, though.
I'm going to figure that one out. That was off the left chart, Mike.
I mean, you know what? I have constantly, done that, sent films of myself and doing stuff like that, and nobody will blow it up viral. But go ahead, Anthony.
Biggest free agents out there right now, where are we projecting they're going? Can we go there?
Okay, we have Earl Thomas. Earl Thomas is being pursued likely by Dallas and probably San Francisco. They are the two biggest players. And it all comes down to money. It's a very, very flooded safety market. If you take a look at all the quality safeties and top-end safeties that were available, I think it helps Dallas in reeling in Earl Thomas because we know Earl Thomas wants to go there. And I think he was just playing the game saying he wants to be the highest paid safety. And once all these other guys are getting signed, some of them at a discounted rate, I think we see Earl Thomas ultimately land in Dallas.
Okay.
He's a Cowboys fan. He thinks everybody's going
to. I know it was the Cowboys. I know.
Have I brought them up
once?
Yeah,
I
you
was
have.
Say it, Mike, but you did. So good for you.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Le'Veon Bell.
Where's he going? Where's he going to play football? Is he going to play again?
Jet. He's going to be a Jet.
I think the top teams in the running are probably the Jets. The Texans are a team that nobody's really talking about, but they do have needs at running back with Alfred Blue, a free agent. Lamar Miller is a fringe cap casualty seemingly every year, and he's in a walk year himself. And then Donta Foreman, he never really returned from the Achilles injury from a few years ago. So there's definitely a need for a running back with the Texans. That's who I would like him to land with. The Colts are still going to be in the running, and then there's the 49ers and Raiders. I would say any one of those five teams.
Okay, so
maybe the Eagles.
I go back to my team, the Colts. They have $113 million in cap money to spend. What are they doing? I'm not hearing anything about the Colts doing anything. What are the Colts thinking?
Some teams, and this is where it kind of gets shady for me, because you see a team like the Cowboys in the past 5-6 years, they're a second wave of free agency team. They'll kind of wait until all the money's spent, and then they'll go get the value players. But the Colts have so much cap room, I don't understand the mentality which makes me believe they are bringing in whatever big names are available. I think that's who they might target. Either that or they want to pay their own players.
Mike, what do you think about, with that kind of money and what Anthony just said? Do you agree or disagree?
I think it's a waste of money to spend it on a running back. You can get one of them in the draft. I just don't see the need to pay that much for a running back. Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown both played in Pittsburgh for many years, and neither one of them have a Super Bowl ring. And I think with the Earl Thomas thing, to tell you the truth, I think Adrian Amos would be the better signing from the Chicago Bears, Anthony.
Amos actually is signing with the Packers, who I talked about what they're already doing on their defense.
Yeah. Amos is only 25 years old. He's got a lot more left than Earl Thomas. I think right now he's a better player than Earl Thomas because Thomas is up there in age. What about Landon Collins? Where did he sign?
Washington.
That's what I thought. Okay. So he doesn't worry about winning Super Bowls. He just wanted to get paid. All right.
Yes.
All right. So Sarah, is Le'Veon Bell the biggest waste of money in the NFL right now?
Is he the biggest what?
Waste of money.
Waste of money.
Not.
Waste of money.
Yeah, I agree with what I think Mike just said. I agree with why would you spend that on somebody who hasn't proven to win anything when you could go into the draft and get somebody.
Yeah, I think the Colts are doing it the right way because what we've seen is, now we've seen teams in the last couple of years, the Eagles and the Rams, who have kind of bought a Super Bowl, so to speak. But the majority of teams, we've seen it with the Dolphins a few years ago, the majority of teams that try to use free agency to build their team, it fails because you're bringing guys in here that are older that may not always assimilate well with where you're bringing them. The biggest waste of money in free agency was the Bengals signing Bobby Hart 3 years for $21 million. I would just like to bring that up because I hate the Cincinnati Bengals. Go ahead.
They're the Bungles.
No, they're not. You're a dumbass. You know what? Why would you talk shit about my team?
Because you talk shit about my team, and
I
we
don't
love
talk
each
shit
other.
about your team. Your team just is.
We're going to hang up and text
Baltimore
each other
Colts.
and tell each other how much fun we had on the show today.
No, we're not. Not
And,
where we're going to call my team the Bungles. I'd rather you call one of my kids a bad name. I'm just kidding, by the way, because you wouldn't have the balls to call one of my kids a bad name because my kids would come to California
ever do that
and
in my
probably
life.
scalp
Are you kidding me?
I know, because my kids are insane. You don't want to mess with them. All right, what else we got, Anthony?
I got something else. I got another question. When does the process, and Sarah, this is kind of what you do. When does the process shift from making money to winning rings?
It never does.
It never does?
You keep asking this. You asked about this in baseball too, but that's
some
guys.
How about this, Steve?
It never does
Steve,
for some guys.
If all of a sudden you were 25,
for some guys it never does.
How about this, Steve? If you were 25 and all of a sudden you were 25 but with athletic ability and could shoot a basketball and you could be in the NBA, and that was not a shot at you either. Yeah, it was. But if you could go to the NBA right now.
Yes, it was.
And we could put you.
Thank you for that. I love you.
We could offer you $1 million a year to play for the Golden State Warriors or $10 million a year to play for the New York Knicks. Where would you go?
Yeah, I understand that. But when does it shift? When do you make that change?
It doesn't.
Sarah, you do this for a living. When does it shift?
I think it's that maturity level. When it kicks in, at the beginning, you're willing to take the less to be with the better team. Then you go through the phase of, crap, this may not last very long. And that's when you start thinking, I need the dollars to go with it, right? That's what happens. And then as you mature a bit, and I think it's around 28, 29 for most of them, they start to think about, this could end soon. Do I want to win? And I think that there is a certain mentality, and this goes for any sport, there's certain players that are selfish and don't care. They literally only care about the money. But the guys who aren't selfish players, it changes around 27, 28, 29 when they start to think to themselves, this could end and I won't have won anything. And it does because I can guarantee you when they're done playing, 5 to 7 years after they're done, they regret not winning something.
Yeah. So, Mike, in your eyes, Mike, I love you as a coach. Who's the most disappointing quarterback in the NFL of all time?
Of all time?
All time?
Well, no, I can't say all time. Of our era, of what we know of football. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say all time.
The most disappointing quarterback of all time would have to be Ryan Leaf. I mean, he threw like
really?
3 touchdown
You don't think it's
passes
Dan
in his
Marino?
life.
You don't think it's Dan Marino?
Why would I think it's Dan Marino? Dan Marino did what Dan Marino did. Dan Marino was selfish. He didn't care about winning a championship.
He never won.
But he didn't care about that.
He didn't care. All right.
I mean,
Fair
that's
enough.
why he didn't want a running back.
But see, so I have I feel like the Ryan Leaf thing is, well, let's go back. I have a fondness for Ryan Leaf and the fact that he did go through rehab and he's been through a lot and he has literally changed his life around, which most people cannot say they have done. And so I think that, again, that's that situation where somebody who was coddled for quite some time, put on a pedestal, told he was great and wonderful from day one, and he suffered because of it. And that's not making excuses, because that guy got his life together. And I think that, yeah, maybe he didn't do what he was intended to do in the NFL, but if you follow him on social media and have talked to him since his career has ended in football, that guy is legit. And
I follow Ryan
Leaf.
Yeah, I follow him too, yeah.
Yeah, and if you're talking strictly football, like I've gotten the opportunity to speak to him since he's been done playing, and I have such admiration for somebody like him, because he's going back to what we spoke about earlier on this initial thing on Westbrook. Ryan Leaf took personal responsibility for his life, and he is a totally different person. And it's, it's great to see people who do that, because a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't take responsibility. But again, if you're talking strictly on football, fine.
Actually, I would say him or Todd Marijuanovich.
Marijuanovich?
I don't know who that is.
That's what everybody called him. I mean, the dude was a stud at USC.
Oh, God, and I thought I was an idiot. There you go.
Well, Steve
Marijuanovich.
Was he? But I know. I mean,
good.
Dan Marino, from everybody I've talked to that played with him, I mean, this is the thing about Marino is you never hear guys that played with him really talk glowingly of him. And
he got fired from CBS.
I actually have a friend that played with him for 7 years, and let's just say it's not a glowing endorsement. And I've interviewed 4 or 5 Miami Dolphins and off air. Always ask about it, because if you ever notice when I interview a Dolphin, I almost never bring up playing with Dan Marino. And there's a reason, because before I interview these guys, I usually ask if is there any person or anything you don't want to talk about. And with Miami Dolphins, all but one guy said, let's just leave Dan Marino out of this. And I think that is a really scary endorsement.
Anthony.
Yes.
Anthony, is Jason Garrett safe?
No, absolutely not. No matter what Jerry Jones said, I don't think he's gone. He's going to coach this year. But if they struggle or they don't win, I think there's a good chance Jason Garrett is gone. Yeah, but Jerry Jones said that Jason Garrett could be the longest tenured coach in Dallas.
Over Tom Landry?
When it's all said and done. Yeah.
Oh, Tom Landry was there 29 years.
I know, and that came out of Jerry Jones' mouth, or somebody from their front office mouth.
A lot of stupid shit comes out of Jerry Jones' mouth.
A lot of stupid shit comes out of Jerry Jones' mouth.
Yeah.
Good point, Mike. Spot on, yeah.
But
that's stupid to even say that. Nobody's going to ever be as long as Tom Landry was there.
But, when you got a guy like Mike McCarthy looking for a job next year, what if the Steelers move on from Mike Tomlin? A lot can happen in a year.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody would hire Mike McCarthy.
Let me ask, can I ask the Denver-based question? So, Anthony, if you're the Broncos, what do you do? What do you do with free agency?
Well, the Broncos have been a little bit busy. I like that they brought in Joe Flacco and moved on from Keenum and his contract. I think that was a strong move. But they also signed Kareem Jackson from the star corner from the Texans to go along with Chris Harris. They also I'm pulling up the Broncos notes right now. They made Jawan James, the right tackle from the Dolphins.
That was a great
that's
signing.
A really good addition.
Yes.
Yeah, do you think that was a great one? They're taking a lot of heat for that one.
Why?
What, right tackle?
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every year in free agency, they try to bring in a new tackle, a right tackle and left tackle from another team, and it usually doesn't work out too well.
Yeah, but I think Jawan James is a different order. I think he'll start at right tackle for them and do a really good job, and he makes Joe Flacco's job much easier.
Okay, so here's a question: Is Denver accountable for Keenum's salary, any part of it, even though they've traded him away? Because I don't know the way the whole system works. Did they just trade him and gave his contract up entirely? And is Flacco really the answer for the Broncos?
No, Flacco's not the answer. He's a short-term answer. Yeah. He's a short-term answer until John Elway figures out how to bring in a young quarterback.
So are they carrying Keenum's part of Keenum's salary under the salary cap? Do they have to carry any of that? And I really don't know how that works.
I don't know. I think it's a situational basis with how contracts are structured, but I can look it up real quick. And
Mike, what do you think? What do you think, Mike? I mean, was it a good move for them or not, for Denver, to take Joe Flacco as their starting quarterback?
I'll tell you, I'd have spent the money on getting a free agent.
Trading up for the draft.
Just another free agent offensive lineman. You got to fix the other stuff. I don't think, really, just because of Flacco's injury issues over the last few years, I don't know that there was a big difference between the two of them playing. I just don't. I mean, if you could tell me they'll get to the playoffs, yeah, I'd love to have Joe Flacco. But Joe Flacco's just been another guy for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I agree. Sarah, you brought the question up. What's your answer?
Yeah, no, I'm curious. I was curious of what you guys. I mean, what
this
you guys.
This is your
thought,
team.
but,
I'm told this is your team. So.
Yeah. Well, them and the Giants, but which is another quarterback story to talk about. But I think that. I mean, I have faith in Flacco. I think the criticism of him. We talked about this last time. Like, I think it's a little premature to be super critical of somebody who is. Not a losing quarterback and has done some great stuff. And I think that when you ask people around Denver, they tend to lean on Elway's cheap. And so that's the way they look at Flacco, is he didn't want to spend on somebody else. And I just don't know. I mean, I feel like you can't give Flacco too much heat until you see him play.
Yeah,
I mean,
but what you can give heat is this. If they would have brought Nick Foles in there, I think they'd have been a playoff contender right away.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I think Nick Foles is. It's would they have spent the money? Would Elway have spent the money on a Nick Foles? And he probably would have been worth it, right? I think the other thing is you were talking about the right and left tackles, and I think that is a struggle the Broncos have had the last couple of years. Is their offensive line and keeping them healthy too? And I mean, that'll be an interesting thing to see. Matt Paradise is coming back on injury as a free agent, where he ends up. I don't know what the talk is or what's going on with that, but it's going to be a totally different offensive line and a new head coach and all that kind of stuff. So who knows?
They are on the hook for $3.5 million of Case Keenum. So that's a really good move by them to clear up that $3.5 million off their books. So they're responsible for half of his $7 million salary for this year.
Good. So it's a good move. Yeah, that's why I asked.
This is the problem I see with it. When you look at this, I mean, Joe Flacco since 2015, 14 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 20-15, 18-13, 12-6, and got hurt. The thing that really worries me is you look at the sacks, 27, 33, 26, 16 this year, but he only played in half the games. He's not very mobile. If you don't fix the offensive line, he's not going to make it through the season. And then who's your backup?
Yeah.
Who is?
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem there. I mean, to me, if I'm Denver, if I wanted to fix this, I would have actually probably went after Jacoby Brissett.
probably a great point. I was thinking the same thing before you said that.
Because I think Brissett is a guy that can be a really solid quarterback.
Starting quarterback.
Yeah. And the thing is this, a really solid quarterback is Joe Flacco when he was in his prime. It's Andy Dalton.
Was good.
It's guys like that, guys that they make the playoffs if you put the players around them. You know, an Andy Dalton or a Joe Flacco is not putting the team on their back and taking them to the Super Bowl. But if you give them the players around them, they can.
Right, and I think that's one of those things. Like, an Andy Dalton is one of those quarterbacks that just it bugs me for him because it's like he is good.
He's on the wrong team.
But he's not
on the wrong team.
Right, and I mean
he's on the wrong team,
and that's like you still look at like even with the injuries he suffered. The other one that is Alex Smith. Like, I still think Alex Smith is one of the best quarterbacks out there. It's just
really,
he's not. I love him and I gotta be honest. I've never rooted for a team that he's on, but for some reason. There's just a lot about him. Like, he's good. He is like a solid quarterback, but it's, and again, it's like you there's a lot of these guys that they're solid, they're good, but then one injury at the wrong time, and then it becomes
Dalton,
one injury consecutive.
Yeah, if you look at 2015 with Dalton, the Bengals were tied for the 1 seed with the Patriots. We're sitting at 10-2 when he gets hurt. And once he gets hurt, it's over with because A.J. McCarron's a shit quarterback. And you cannot beat the Pittsburgh Steelers with A.J. McCarron or Marvin Lewis telling him what to do. So
he's
when you look at it,
it's like Derek Carr, right? It was the Derek Carr thing.
I think there is a chance if he could get out of Oakland, he could be more than that. But I think being stuck in Oakland with somebody who's not very good with quarterbacks, I said that about John Gruden. Because, he's great at drawing stuff up for guys that aren't on his team. But when you look at the history of John Gruden, the only successful quarterback he had was Rich Gannon, who had already been coached. Now, he did play better with Gruden than he did for anybody else. But everybody seems to remember the Super Bowl the first year in Tampa Bay and don't remember the almost decade of futility after that of him drafting quarterback after quarterback and every one of them failing. So I think that John Gruden teamed up with that Davis guy who gets his hair cut with the same barber Pete Rose uses and thinks he's still 12 years old. The Raiders are never going to do anything. The only way they do anything if Al Davis comes back to life and he's 28.
Okay, I've got two. Is that just poor construction of a team or what?
It is a poor philosophy of the way they've done this because if you look at the Oakland Raiders, when Al Davis was there, it wasn't that Al Davis got senile. It was a little bit. But if you look, Al Davis, when he took over ownership of that team and was the head coach, he was big on vertical speed. Run the ball. You need wide receivers that run 4.2 40s. Who was the guy he drafted like 5 years ago, Anthony, that ended up not being worth a crap? Like the 9th pick in the draft. Do you remember who I'm talking about?
Who's that?
The Raiders. The guy who could fly down the field but wasn't very... Or the Obi Malafanua that they picked in the second round a couple years ago. What they did is this. They still have the philosophy that Al Davis had in the 60s and 70s. And the NFL is different because in the 60s and 70s, straight line speed for receivers and DBs was very important. Now it's not because now offenses, you don't see 4 verticals very often. The game is not a vertical passing game. It's more of a dink and dunk, hit the passes within 20 yards. So you need wide receivers that he may only, what do we got? Julian Edelman. He's not a burner. He's faster than what people give him credit for. But what he's good at is he's good against sitting down in windows against zone defenses. He finds the opening. They run a lot of option routes. There were almost no option routes in the 60s, 70s, up until you got to probably the Bengals offense when Bill Walsh was the OC there in the 70s. And then, of course, when he was the head coach of the Niners in the 80s, those were the first team to really run option routes. So straight line speed and speed of players, the 40 time was a big deal. And I think that Al Davis never transitioned from straight line speed to guys who could make football moves and had football speed.
Mike, are you talking about like Bullet Bob Hayes?
Yeah, I mean, a guy like that
knows,
wouldn't work today no
Bullet
matter how
Bob Hayes,
fast
there
he
you
is.
go.
Because
Yeah,
all I would
Sprinter,
do is I would play a zone,
Yeah.
and I'd drop my safety 25 yards deep, and Bob Hayes all of a sudden has to catch the ball in front of me. Bob Hayes don't want to do that because I'm going to beat the hell out of him. So Bob Hayes is not as valuable as what he used to be. I mean, when you look at it, there was very few guys that played back then that would be successful now, and vice versa, just because the game was played in an entirely different way. And I think teams like the Raiders with Al Davis never made that adjustment. They're stuck in the past. Maybe Mayock and Gruden can get them out of that. But I really don't have a lot of faith that a guy that was an ESPN analyst and the other guy was an ESPN announcer.
Okay, so question here. God, we're going to go on for another hour. Now,
no, not because I'm going to cut you off eventually.
I know. You will. John Gruden, is he good for the Raiders or not? Is
Obviously
he doing
not.
the right thing?
He's not.
Not?
I mean,
not?
We'll find out
Alex?
because he's got enough
Sarah?
draft picks.
We have three opinions
We're going
here.
to find out real quick.
Alex, is John Gruden good for the Raiders? And Anthony. Yeah, I got NASCAR. I got NASCAR on my brain next. Yeah, I got to do a NASCAR show next. So
wait and see. I'm taking a wait and see. I like what they're doing with bringing these players in. It's just, can they put it all together? Can they gel?
Yeah, but the difference in becoming a team that wins is being able to draft well, because people don't realize if you want to find teams that are really good like the Patriots, they draft well from 3 to 7, because 3 to 7 is where you get your special teams and your depth. And most teams can't sustain injuries like a team like the Patriots can and continue to win. But
that's the
okay,
point.
Mike.
That's the point.
Go ahead.
I always say, you traded away Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper and got these draft picks.
Do something.
That's all well and good, but you better hit on them.
Yeah.
That's what I keep saying about the Raiders and Gruden. That's what it comes down to.
Mike, your genius is this. Can Gruden coach?
From everything I've seen, he won a Super Bowl, but the 7 or 8 years after that would make me doubt it. The 10 or 15 years away from coaching would make me doubt it. Plus, generally, I don't know. I mean, it's the same thing. It's not whether you can coach, it's whether he can get the players in, and then we find out if he can coach. Because he can coach great, but if he doesn't have players, it's not going to matter. So they've got to get the right players in, and then we'll see if he can coach it. Either way, shit, he's rich. What's he care? Sarah, what do you think?
What's he care, right?
Well, I think the great argument with Gruden always was, is he willing to put it back on the line by going back into coaching, or is he safer just sitting in the studio doing Monday Night Football, right? It's more of that ego question of, can you get back into it? And that's what you said. I mean, he's been out of it for a while. But I know that it's like every fan of a team was sitting there, waiting for Gruden to make his name available back in the coaching mix. So he definitely, he's a good coach. It's just, again, that's why I asked you, is it the building the team? What is it? It seems to be, there's something restrictive there. Because I don't think it's a Derek Carr problem. I think he's a great quarterback. I think he has potential to be really good. It's just, what are they giving him? I don't know. I'm a John Gruden fan. I like him. I mean, he's the style of coaching that I kind of like, and I
like
hope he
him.
does well. I mean, I'm not an Oakland Raider fan, but
the thing I doubt is this with him. I just doubt the reason why he came back, because that's a lot of money, and
yep.
I think it could be about the money, it could be about his ego, or maybe he just wants to coach football again. If it's the last one, he'll be successful. If it's either one or the first two, he's going to fail.
How much can the ego take if they don't win again this year?
Huh?
How much can that ego take?
But that comes back to what
$100 million
before,
worth.
right?
Are you kidding me? $100 million.
Exactly. Your ego can take
a lot. You can take a lot for $100 million.
Well,
yeah,
if you have an ego,
face for $100 million.
Even if you have an ego, if it's a true ego, after 10 years of failing, you're still going to think you could do this. So it doesn't really matter.
Exactly. You got $100 million in the bank, and you've invested it, and you've probably turned that into $300 or $400 million.
Yeah.
So good for you. Yeah. So no big deal.
All right. We got anything else before we wrap it up?
I do.
Stay with Bobby for a couple
two
minutes.
more things.
Uh-oh.
Sarah.
Yes. Yeah.
John Elway, should he go?
Oh, God, you can't ask me that question. I feel like that's such an unfair question. So
Mike has an opinion. I have an opinion. Sarah, you're part of the show.
If you could get him,
you have to have an opinion.
If you could get him into AA, I think he would be fine.
So I think
Sarah,
I think it's very much like coaching, right? This is my, and I've taken heat on this before as it pertains to my alma mater, but I do believe that you got to give them, 3 to 5 years. And I think that
he's been there for 30 years.
They can't.
He's been there forever.
As the GM, and I think that if this year is another year like we've had, I think it raises a lot of questions, because the questions have already been raised, and now it's like, okay, you better find the solution. But I'm torn, because it's like, people here just idolize him. They idolize him. Like, they think the sun rises and sets by John Elway.
Yeah, he owns a bunch of Chevrolet dealerships. He owns a bunch of Papa John's pizza stores. We know all that stuff.
Yeah, he does fine.
We get that. Yeah, he does fine. But can he GM this team anymore to bring them to another Super Bowl championship?
I mean, you've got to look at the draft picks. You've got to look at the quarterback.
So you're trying to say no. You're trying to say no, he can't. You're trying to be polite.
I'm not saying I didn't use the word no. You used the word no. Listen, I
played for Bobby Knight. I only know yes and no. Either Risley, you're a dumbass, or Risley, you're a good player. I don't know C. There's A and B.
All right, so let me say this then. Okay, here's the deal. I like his head coaching choice. I think I'm excited about this head coaching choice that we have coming into this year. I personally, I like Joe Flacco, and the Ravens are one of those teams I never ever rooted for, and I'm kind of excited to see Joe Flacco here and see him on a team that I can actually root for. I like our wide receivers. I know that they took a little bit of hit, but I think Cortland Sutton's a great wide receiver. I think he has a lot of potential, and he's young, and he's quick, and I think it'll be interesting to see what he can do with a quarterback that can get him the ball, hopefully. I think if we can get our offensive line together, Vaughn's got that defense dialed with Chubb, and I think that, there's obviously some moves to make, but if we can't do it this year, then there's serious questions on the table, is my point, because I think that we do have a lot of key pieces they're starting to put together.
So you took 3 minutes to say no. He's not the GM of the team anymore. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I didn't say that.
Anthony. Yeah, we're done. We're done. Anthony. Robert Kraft. What kind of trouble is he in?
Slap on the wrist. From the NFL. From the NFL, he's not going to get a lot. If anything, a fine. Maybe at worst, a loss of a draft pick because it's a violation of league conduct. He should be more worried about the legal system, and I guess whatever penalty can happen out of there, and how deep this prostitution ring actually went, if there was any trafficking he was involved in. But from the NFL, if it stays the way it is, it's not going to be much.
All
Mike,
right.
What do you think?
About what? I don't really care, because I don't know the whole story, so we'll see how it goes. I don't really care about an old dude flying all the way to Florida for some reason. The bigger question is, who was with him? Tiger Woods is my guess. All right, guys.
I think Tiger Woods was with him. I think Tiger Woods is part of this process.
All right.
I do think that. Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and wrap this part up. We're going to take a commercial break and come back with On This Day with Bobby. Real quick, Sarah, you want to tell everybody where they can hear you or find you?
Well, I think based on what Steve just said, nobody wants to hear me. I long-windedly say no.
Why do you think I don't? Oh, that is not fair.
I'm so hurt. Bobby Knight only says yes or no. There's no in between.
There is no in between. It's sports. You win or you lose.
Yes,
There's no ties.
that's true.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they can go on.
so go for it.
They can find me on Steve's Twitter account, or they can find me just by it's at Sarah Uhran, and that's SARAHUHRAN. How do you pronounce it, Mike?
Uhran.
Uhran. See, he's good.
All right, from now on, that's what it's going to be too. Uhran. But
I like
Anthony,
that. I like that.
Anthony, FF.
Sarah, wait. I got Sarah. Who was the first person that called you and asked you to be on our show?
That would
James
not be
Ernest.
Mike.
James Ernest. I listened to
was.
that show,
James.
and then
It was
James Ernest one time, and then who called you after that and said, "Would you be willing to do?"
James
And I talked to your
Ernest.
assistant out here in L.A. all the time, and I have to go through your assistant to get you scheduled in because I can't talk to you directly.
Kind of a big deal. I've got a dog.
Okay.
24/7.
All right.
Well, once again, thanks, James Ernest. All right, Anthony, tell everybody where they can find you.
You can follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru, and you can follow the show at the FF Face Off as well.
All right, guys, we'll be back in a minute with Bobby to talk about On This Day. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Mike
Thanks,
Goodpaster
guys.
from the Grueling Truth
you
Sports
guys
Network,
later.
and I'm here with just one simple message.
Have a
If
good
you're
one.
watching the games, it's time to start making money. The Grueling Truth has recently partnered with MyBookie.ag, an industry-leading sportsbook website, who reminds you that where you bet is just as important as who you're betting on, and that's why the Grueling Truth urges you to check out MyBookie.ag. In addition to the usual thousands of odds, money lines, proposition bets, and futures offered on MyBookie.ag daily, they also have in-game live betting and a mobile site that makes wagering on the go easier than ever. So join now, and MyBookie will give you up to a free $1,000 cash bonus on your first deposit. Just enter promo code TGT50, that's TGT50, to take advantage of this offer. You can also go to thegruelingtruth.net, click the banner at the top of the page for MyBookie.ag, and also get the same benefit and the same $1,000 free cash bonus on your first deposit. So visit MyBookie.ag, courtesy of the Grueling Truth, and enjoy winning today. MyBookie.ag. You play, you win, you get paid.
All right, guys, we are back on the Grueling Truth Sports Network on Survive and Advance. Steve, do you learn anything about the NFL today?
Yeah, I did. We had a great show. I learned a lot.
All righty. Well, see, I bring that up because once again, I
Do
read the
we want to
commercial.
spend another hour?
I read the commercial that I forgot.
Do we want?
Yeah, they called to call Bobby, but okay. Hey, Ed,
Do we want to
there
spend
we
another
go.
hour?
Bobby Sheridan.
We got Bobby.
You got it on this
We
day,
got-
Bobby?
Hey,
We got Bobby
good
Sheridan.
morning, guys.
The man,
Good morning.
the
good
myth,
morning,
the
Steve. How are you?
legend, Bobby Sheridan.
Well, hey, we're here and we're ready to go, and I got a good on this day this morning, Steve.
Okay, I gotta
Are you ready for it?
get to your. I gotta wait here. Let me get to. I don't. You sent me your
It's
email.
college basketball, so you're the expert. You should have no problem with it.
All right, go here.
Okay, Steve. 1987. This was a great year for the Hoosiers. You know, they won
Right.
the
Mhm.
championship, but there was somebody in that year that was doing some special things, and his name is David Robinson, the Admiral. On this day, he scored 50 points for the Navy, for the Naval
For
Academy.
Navy, right? Mm-hmm.
For Navy, and I want to hear some thoughts on David Robinson.
He was too tall. He wanted to be a submarine captain, and he was too tall. He was 6'7", and he was the tallest player in the Navy, as I recall, and I'm not 100% sure of that. But he started at Navy, I think at like 6'4", and then he grew like 3 inches while he was at Navy. And he wanted to run submarines. So he wanted to be a great NBA player. Am I right or wrong?
So, did that exempt him, Steve, when being 6'4", but because he outgrew the? Am I wrong there? I mean, wasn't there a height requirement, but they They exempt
Yeah,
him
I think it's
because
6'4". I think the height requirement for the Navy or any military is like 6'4". I don't know that for a fact. Mike, look it up. Mike, can you Google that
I
real
don't
quick?
have to Google it. Yeah, I mean he was 6'3", 6'4" when he came in, and he grew. So
Came
he got
in,
an exemption. He
yeah,
got out.
and-
He got
yeah.
to play in the NBA.
Got
The
out.
50 points,
Yeah,
was
got
that
in
the
NBA.
game against North Carolina?
I
Or
believe it
Syracuse?
is, but I'm not 100% sure. I didn't look up the details of it. I just was more interested in the man because he wound up being just a model citizen in San Antonio, a legend there, and finally got his championship. It was really neat. Him and Duncan teamed up for a championship.
Yeah,
well,
but
and what's interesting – go ahead,
go
Mike.
ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, you go first, please.
I'm waiting on you. Go ahead.
All right. David Robinson is on the committee with the NCAA now that sets the policy for the rules and regulations of of NCAA basketball. Am I not right there, Mike? He and Condoleezza Rice and a bunch of other multimillionaires that are already on there, but he is part of that process now that sets the policy of how the NCAA runs college basketball. Fair?
Sure. I don't remember. I don't know because I don't know.
Well, I can look it up real quick. But, I actually have the email from David Robinson.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. The thing that I remembered
And
was
on it.
the
That's
thing
cool.
I remembered the most about any of this, Steve, though, was him taking Navy to the Elite Eight. Was that 1986 or
Yeah.
87?
Yeah. So, Mike,
I
in your
It was 86.
okay, Akeem Olajuwon or David Robinson?
For what? According to how you want to play. But I would take Olajuwon.
You
But
take Olajuwon? Okay.
I still think that this is March. I think we probably need to concentrate on the Elite Eight run they made in 1986.
Okay.
That's amazing. The Naval Academy makes an Elite Eight run. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. And, I mean,
Yeah.
what was it? They beat Syracuse and Michigan in the first two rounds, Steve?
Yeah, I'm not looking it up, so I'm sure you are. So I'll
Yeah,
vouch
I'm
for
sure
you
I
on
gotta
this
look
one.
it up.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. There's no
Well, no,
reason
you
to
may
look
know
it
it,
up.
Mike.
I
I'm
mean,
sorry,
it's the
Mike.
history
You
of
probably
college
know it, yeah.
basketball. Shit. I mean, they beat North Carolina 97-82. They upset Syracuse, and the cool thing about that was it was in the Carrier Dome. And then that's the same year that Bob Knight loses to Cleveland State. Remember the big upset? I'm sure you remember that one. And then they ended up, I think Cleveland State beat like Richmond, but I'm not sure because Richmond upset somebody too. It was like the first 12-13 matchup in the second round, or St. Joseph's. I think it was St. Joseph's or Richmond, but I think it was St. Joseph's. They beat St. Joseph's by like 7 or 8 points. Then they came back in the Sweet 16, and Navy played Cleveland State. Cleveland State had a point guard. I think his name was Mouse McFadden. He's the one that tore up IU in that first-round tournament game. And it was a great game, and Navy wins the game 73-72. They had some white dude. Well, they had a lot of white dudes. It was the Naval Academy, but who shot the lights out. They beat Cleveland State, and they made it to the Elite Eight. And that was they played Duke in 1986. And the great thing about that Duke team was, if you remember, no 16 had ever beat a number 1 seed. The first time it ever came close to happening was 1986 because Duke played Mississippi Valley State. I think they were called like the Demon Devils or some shit. But it's where Jerry Rice played college basketball or college football at before he went to the 49ers. But they played Mississippi Valley State in the first round, and I think they beat them like 74-67. But Mississippi Valley State had the lead for most of the game. Duke pulls through and beats them. Then Duke thumps two teams, and I don't remember who, in the Sweet 16. And in the second round, they played Navy in the Elite Eight. And Mike Krzyzewski this was the 86 Duke team that had Billis, Allery, Johnny Dawkins, who I'd love to watch play.
Great.
I can't remember who else was on that team. But that was the first Final Four team they had. Or they hadn't been to the Final Four at Duke since 1978 when they lost the national championship game to Kentucky. They'd gotten close. I think in 80 they lost in the Elite Eight to Purdue in Lexington. And they come out and they thumped Navy like 72-50. Of course, they went on to play LSU, I think it was. Louisville played LSU. Duke played Kansas. Yeah, Duke went on to beat Kansas, and then they played in the national championship game and lost to, who the hell was it in 86, Steve? Shit, Louisville. Never nervous Purvis Ellison. And
well, here's what's happened. Every year that in 80 LSU or Louisville won, we won in 81. Then in 86 Louisville won, we won in 87. Indiana did. So it's kind of like you got in that deal where like we have to wait for Louisville to win a championship again before Indiana can win another championship.
Well, if you remember, Louisville also made the Final Four in 1982 and 1983 also.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Maybe the
Under
best
Denny
program
Crum, right?
of the 80s.
Denny Crum.
Yeah, because in 1980, Darryl Griffith, they win the national championship by beating UCLA
Pancho
by
Wright.
5. Darryl Griffith was
and we can get Pancho Wright. We can get Pancho Wright on the show if you want. Pancho Wright and I talk.
I thought you were supposed to already have had him. But then you go the 81 Louisville team. I think they got upset on U.S. Reed's half-court buzzer beater for Texas A&M. Then in 1982, they lost in the Final Four to Houston. Lost to North Carolina. So Georgetown beat
UCLA?
Louisville. No, Georgetown. That was the first John Thompson team to make it to the national championship game. That lost when Fred Brown threw the ball to the wrong team or thought he saw the wrong team, threw it to James Worthy.
Yeah.
But that 82 team lost 50-44, if I remember right. It was like 6 points against Georgetown. Then in 83, you remember the classic game against Phi Slamma Jammy Houston with all the slam dunks and everything. And they lost to Houston there. In 83, they also, if you remember, they beat Kentucky in the Elite Eight in double overtime where they ran them out of the building in the second overtime. 84, they played Kentucky again in the Sweet 16, and Kentucky beat them that time. Then 1985, I think they lost to the Elite, or the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight. I think they lost to the Elite Eight. And then in 86, of course, they went to the final, and then they kind of disappeared after that. But, yeah, but that Navy run was one of the greatest underdog runs of all time because I'm pretty sure the 50-point game he had in 86 was against North Carolina, and they beat Carolina like 97-82. But the one that really stood out was they beat Syracuse in the Carrier Dome. And if you guys remember, I think that was the Syracuse team with Pearl Washington.
Yeah, that's about the right time.
I remember the name. Yeah, I remember the name. Yeah.
Left-handed Dwayne Pearl Washington.
Yep.
And then he went on to play for the Nets.
Bad dude. And that was the year before Syracuse would go to the national championship and lose to IU. All right, guys, we're going to have to
wait. But before we go, should I text you something before I mention this? Because I'm going to make a pretty bold statement here right now.
What's your bold statement?
Never mind. I'll talk to you about it later. We'll do it tomorrow.
All right, guys, we will be back with the Sheridan Report. Of course.
Oh, we're done?
Sheridan. Yeah. Brought to you. It's almost 2:00. Brought to you by mybookie.ag. So make sure you come on there to listen to all the Bobby's picks. Then go to mybookie.ag. Click on the grillingtruth.net website. Go there. Click that. You can follow Steve.
We're not going to. Wait. We're not going to ask Bobby about conference championships happening this week and who's predictors and who he's kind of favoring and things like that. Or are you guys doing that on your own show?
Well, we do it on the show so we can pick the games and make some money.
Yeah,
okay, so
we had Brian on yesterday to do that. Brian knows more than Bobby.
Bobby, Bobby, what do we got this week? I mean, who's up?
Steve, mybookie.ag is a sponsor of the Sheridan Report Sports Selection Show. We're going to give it all to them on that show
over the course of the week. So listen in and you'll get the answers to the questions. Remember, you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, wherever you find sports podcasts. You'll find The Grilling Truth. So for
and here's what you guys missed. Here's what you guys missed. I have an incredible story about John Thompson. He recruited me, but we'll save it for another day because I don't know if it's appropriate to talk about or not. But
alrighty, I think I've heard that. I think you've told me that story before, so you can tell it on air.
All right.
I think it'll be fine. But remember, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Anthony Cervino, Sarah Uhran, Steve Risley, Bobby Sheridan, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.